So I'm going to make pizza dough that should be enough for 2 small pizzas or 1 very large pizza. I like to make bread in the Richard Bertinet style. I say that because he is a French baker who has a bakery in England, and he has really popularized this method for making bread, and it's the method that I learned at college, and it just makes superior bread, I think, because it has a higher water content. Here I have whey, the liquid left over from straining my yogurt that I make. I like to use that because it gives a nice slightly sourdoughy flavour to the bread, but you can just use water in its place. So for this quantity of dough, I'm going to use 300 grams of strong flour. So when I say strong flour, I'm talking about flour that has a slightly higher gluten content than normal plain flour. And this is good for bread, much better for bread. This one has 12% protein. Then we have the yeast. I'm using 1 teaspoon, and I'm using a slightly heaped ½ teaspoon of salt into the other side of the flour. You want to keep that separate from the yeast at this point. In goes 30 grams of olive oil, and finally we want 180 grams of our water or whey. So I have a scraper, but if you don't have one, you can use a spatula. I mean, I've done it with just my hand before. And we're just gonna bring together all the ingredients in this dough. So now with our hands, we're just going to bring this together and incorporate all of that excess flour. As this all comes together, you can see it's quite sticky. So if you try to use a more common kneading technique with this, it's just going to make such a mess all over your hands and the work surface. So the technique is, I'll try and show you in slow, is you go in like this, you lift it up at the front, but you don't really squeeze it, you don't want to press it too much, the thumbs are just to support. You lift it up and then you flick it down and then you pull it over, and you want to keep the top on the top to form a nice smooth shell for the dough. So up, down, and if you do it with more force, then it's going to help to stretch the dough out more and it'll make it easier. So you're not trying to destroy it, but you just kind of let the weight of the dough, as you flick it up and bring it down, stretch out the dough. Now, because I'm used to it, it takes me about 5 minutes. With people who are just starting out, or when I first learnt, it normally takes about 10 minutes. But I'll show you what you're looking for when we get there. From time to time, especially with stickier bread doughs, like if you're making a normal loaf without olive oil, it's good to just take your scraper and just walk the dough around your work surface. And what this does is it helps to pull the sides down to make it nice and strong and stretched on the shell, and it helps to pick up any little bits of dough that are stuck to the work surface. And then you continue. Richard Bertinet explains this much better, so I will put a link in the description to his video tutorial of how to do bread dough. So as it gets closer to being ready, it's going to become smooth on top, and then that smooth skin is going to start to rip a little bit, and that is one of the signs that you might need to just check to see if it's ready. So the things we're looking out for to see if it's ready: firstly, when you press it, it should be fairly elastic, it shouldn't spread too much. You can see that spread quite a lot, so that's not ready. The other way is we go underneath the side and we just carefully sort of ease out the dough, and we're looking for a thin window, if you're very careful, which you'll be able to kind of almost see through. Obviously that just ripped, so that shows it's not ready. So we're going to keep going. What you can do if you don't have a scraper for walking the dough around is you take your hand and you want to press down ever so slightly so it drags a little bit, and then turn it at the same time and scoop underneath. And that's just going to pick up any dough, and it's going to kind of strengthen that outer skin and pull it around to make it tighter. I don't know if you can see on the camera there, but that is ever so slightly, you can see it's darker. You can almost see through that, because it just broke there, but it's basically ready now. So I'm just going to give it a tiny bit more, a couple more, just to smooth it around. You can see it's breaking there at the sides now. So that's going to be the sign to say that this dough is ready. So we're just going to walk it a little bit more to pull that round, make a lovely smooth and round shape. And then we're going to put it in the bowl. We're going to add a tiny little bit of oil. We're just going to spread it around with our hands so it's coating the bottom, and then we're going to stick our dough in. So what I like to do is I have these just grocery bags that you put your fresh produce in, and I've just split it a little bit on one side so that it spreads slightly flatter and slightly wider, and I use that to cover my bowl. You can wash these, you can reuse them again and again, so I prefer to use them instead of cling film because I don't like to waste plastic. And then I like to just take a tea towel, clean tea towel, and just cover over the bowl, over the plastic, so that it has that extra layer of insulation. Lots of people in recipes say until the dough has doubled in size. It's not really accurate because what looks like doubled in size is kind of subjective. So I will show you the better way to test if the dough is ready. So literally I've just got some plain medium-sized tomatoes. To be honest, you can use any type really. We're just basically going to cut them into wedges. Take out the little hard part at the top, and it's as simple as that really. We're just taking tomato, cutting it into kind of quarters or thick wedges, and sticking them in our tray. And then I've just got some garlic, and literally not going to even peel it. The peels come off a bit on that one, but just going to stick them in the tray amongst the tomatoes. So as you can see, I filled up the tray pretty well. You don't need to space the tomatoes out too much. You can see I've got my garlic cloves dispersed in there. And now we're just going to put it in the oven at 120 degrees for 2 hours. So here you can see I've just taken the tomatoes out. I did 2 trays in the end with 3 cloves of garlic each because they're quite full. And you can see they've just shrunken a little bit, they've dried out a bit. You could keep this process going for longer to make your own sun-dried tomatoes and then just store them in olive oil or garlic oil or whatever you wanted. And it's a fraction of the price of in the supermarket. So I've chucked my tomatoes into my Thermomix, but you can use any kind of food processor or blender. And I'm just going to show you with the garlic how easy it is to just squeeze with your fingers and peel that off, and you've got this soft garlic clove inside. Depending on the ripeness of your tomatoes and the type of tomatoes that you have, you may want to just sweeten the sauce a tiny little bit. Literally just to bring out a bit of sweetness. Then we're going to add some salt and some pepper. And I'm just going to blend that up again. And there you have a super simple, really tasty tomato sauce that can be used for pasta, pizza, any basic tomato sauce application really. What I'm going to do is 2 smaller pizzas so I can show you 2 oven methods and show you the size if you're making 2 with this quantity of dough. And on one of them I am going to put a scattering of the Parma ham, the olives and a mixture of the cheeses. On the other one I'm going to do half fresh white cheese, parmesan, salami and pepper. And the other half, I'm going to do a sweet pizza with banana, cinnamon and mozzarella. I know that sounds weird, but here in Brazil, it's quite common to use banana on pizza, both savoury with tomato base and sweet with cinnamon, and still the mozzarella, and it's delicious. So the dough is about finished proving for its first prove. You can see it's grown a bit. It doesn't look like that much because it wasn't a massive quantity of dough to start with. You can see it's got a big air bubble here. Not really a problem, we can pop that. And so you can see the yeast has been working. So in this step we are going to use a little bit of flour on the work surface. And we're just going to turn the dough out. Probably don't even need the scraper. Sometimes you do, but for this one you don't because it's not too sticky. We're just going to turn it out and put that top smooth side, minus the hole, upside down. Then we're just going to press it out a bit and we're going to fold in. And this is the standard way that I prepare bread for shaping after the first proof. Take it out, gently press it out a bit, fold it, and that builds up a nice structure. And then you shape it. So for this one, we're making 2 pizzas, so I'm just going to fold it again like that. Now we're just going to take the scraper, and I'm not too worried about weighing it to be exact. We're just going to go down in half. To shape each individual one as a nice round, we're just going to pull in the corners. And if I was shaping a round loaf or bread rolls, I would do that as well. And then we're going to turn it back over, and we're going to kind of do what we were doing earlier with the walking around with our hands, kind of pressing down slightly to tuck that all underneath, and it's starting to round already. And then we can do a bit of that. We can do a bit of rolling in our palm, kind of loose grip. So there we have our 2 balls of pizza dough. I've just lightly oiled this tray, and I'm going to stick them nicely spaced apart on there for their second prove. And then I'm just going to take the plastic from earlier and cover them again, just until they puff up and spread a little bit and get nice and light and airy. The dough has proved again, it's puffed up a little bit, it's nice and soft and squidgy. We're gonna put a little bit more flour, and we've got that top in the flour. Now we're just gonna turn it over, and we're just gonna press it out, and avoid pressing all the way to the edges, because you want to keep that kind of crust, that raised crust. You can kind of pick it up and keep pinching underneath the edge of the crust, so you keep that crust thick. And you keep turning it, and what this does is it allows the dough to kind of fall and stretch under its own weight. There are other ways, you know, you can get under there with your fists, your knuckles, and kind of do a slight pull and twist. And that stretches it out a bit. It's also helpful if you do it a bit like this and then you leave it to rest for 30 seconds even, just to allow the gluten to relax before you continue to stretch it, will make it a bit easier. Just to talk you through while I'm letting it rest, the first oven I'm going to use for this one is a small electric oven, and its max temperature is 230 degrees Celsius or 260 with the broiler on. So what I've done is I stuck a pizza stone in there and heated it up to 230 for a while with the bake setting, and then on the broiler setting to 260 to bring up that temperature even more. So it's more relaxed now, so we can continue going a bit more. Gonna go underneath and do a bit more spinning. And this bit you want to keep it well floured. Obviously keep it thicker if you like a thicker crust. I quite like a thin crust. So that's about the size of a small pizza that you get. So you get 2 of these from that quantity of dough of a medium. I mean, it's not super thin crust, but it's not going to be a really thick crust. Then we take the paddle, or you can just use an inverted baking tray. Now we're going to top it. So we have our sauce that we made earlier. So we're going to put a good amount of sauce, but not too much. So you see how little we're using. That quantity of sauce is going to last you quite a while if you make up a large quantity and freeze it. So this one is the one with the Parma ham, so I'm just going to scatter that around, and the olives, and then our mixture of cheese. So we've got our Parmesan, we've got our fresh white cheese, and we've got a bit of mozzarella to go over the top of that. So this pizza is now ready to go in the oven. You want to be fairly quick, so you keep the heat in the oven. Oh, can I show this? Stick it in. I'll turn the light on so you can see. So after about 4 or 5 minutes, when the crust had started to colour a bit, I just chucked in some fresh basil on top. It's probably about done now. It's got a nice colour, the basil's wilting, so let's take it out. So just so you can see the sort of qualities of the pizza, you've got a very nice light crust here, airy crust, cooked through properly. The bottom is very pale using this method. So for this one, I am just going to put it on the paddle and quickly do the toppings, and then the oven for this one, the other cooking method that I'm going for is it's a gas oven, which is very bottom heavy, so I don't know how the top is going to turn out colour wise, but it goes up to supposedly between 250 and 280. It's strange, it gives a range rather than a specific temperature. And I have a stone heating in there as well. So we're just doing half with the tomato on this one. On the other half, I'm going straight on with banana, followed by mozzarella, a little sprinkle of cinnamon over the top of that. Got our pizza stone, really nice and hot, hopefully. In with the pizza there. So this one up here has been in now for 11 minutes, and it's about the same. It's got slightly less char, but it's got an overall even brownness. This took 11 minutes in the oven at the setting of between, don't know if you can see that, between 250 and 280. And the first one took 6 minutes. If we check the underside of this one, it has got much more coloration though. You can see this one has a similar texture to the other one on the crust. On the inside, it's quite light and airy, but the crust on this one is slightly more crispy. The conclusion is both worked really well. This one is a little bit crispier when you eat it as well, and on the bottom, because of that extra coloration on the bottom. But I did also really like the extra sort of darkness on the top of the one that was cooked under the broiler. I forgot to say earlier, if you don't have a stone, you can also use, I know if you just look online, you can find various different sort of stone slabs and tiles that work, that you might have around the house. Just make sure it's a one which is sort of heat proof and isn't going to crack in the oven and will hold the heat well. Or you can just use an inverted baking tray, but thicker is better because it will hold the heat more. My serving suggestion, with a healthy salad on the side and a nice cold beer. See you next week.